Hey, welcome to the Birdcraft. And today what I want to talk about is communication, because that is one of the number one soft skills that you have to have in order to be successful. What you have to understand is that as an aircraft mechanic, the most important piece of safety equipment is you and your mind and your ability to use it. And you always have to communicate with others. And most times you have to over communicate. You can't assume that you're heard. You really have to go over and beyond to communicate, right? Because the last thing that you want to do is walk away from a job and for them to understand that it was finished and it was not. It'd be a bad time to figure out that that job was not finished when the pylons are flying off the airplane because they weren't screwed in, or because the airplane's unable to stop because you didn't get around to torquing that B-nut, right? So let's talk about communication in the hangar. Let's talk about being safe and efficient aircraft mechanics and how that often means over communicating. One of the things that I mean by over communicating is always pointing out unsafe conditions. It doesn't matter if you know if it's unsafe. If you think it's unsafe, then go ahead and say something. Why don't you have a conversation with your superiors or your trainers or the owner? All right, just point it out, have the conversation. They're not gonna think any less of you because you care, right? Always ask questions. What do I mean when I say always ask questions? I mean ask a question. I mean, if you have a question, ask. Ask the pilot, ask the engineer, ask the other mechanics around you. No one's gonna think less of you because you asked a question. They're only gonna think you wanna learn and nobody knows it all. So you wanna ask questions. Number 3, you wanna confirm that you heard what you were told. All right, let me give you a couple of examples of this. One of those examples are, Joshua, go set the parking brake. Joshua goes in there, sets the parking brake, and then yells out, parking brake set. Right? I was told to do it. I did it, but then I came back and I said it was done. Right? Another example of that is, go pull the hydraulic pump circuit breaker. I go in there and I pull the hydraulic pump circuit breaker, maybe the number 1, and I yell out the main entry door, number 1 hydraulic pump circuit breaker pulled. And a lot of times, even on the floor, somebody else will say that they heard it, or they'll repeat it again. That is what I mean when I say over communicating. Granted, it's not really over communicating. It's expected. It's expected for you to do these things. So our number 1 was always pointing out unsafe conditions. Number 2, always ask questions. Reject the thought that it may reduce what others think of you. It's all in your head. We want everybody to know as much as possible in the aviation industry because it makes it safer. Number 3, you want to confirm what you heard and you want to over communicate. Number 4 is confirming that your order was complied with, right? Someone gives you an order, confirm that it was complied with. And number 5, you want to talk about with your peers what you're doing on the aircraft. Maybe the lead, maybe your boss tells you to go do something. When I'm passing other colleagues, when I'm passing other peers, when solid aircraft mechanics are in pursuit of completing a mission, they'll often talk about it with their colleagues and peers. Why? Because their peers may have input, may have a suggestion, may have advice or guidance, may have done the job last week and may know a little trick. And if you are aiming to be excellent, then you're not going to reject any potential good advice or guidance that's going to make you better. So you talk about it with your peers, but if something happens to you, you've sown a seed in a couple of people's mind of, man, Joshua had to go home pretty quick. Or he usually says bye to me, but he didn't say bye to me today. Or, one of your peers is told, hey, Joshua got sick. But since you knew to over communicate, since you knew to talk to your peers and colleagues about what you're doing, because you're so transparent, because you're in pursuit of excellence and being the best aircraft mechanic you can be, you spoke to others, you over communicated, you let others know what you were doing so they would come back and double check behind you so we could have the safest and most efficient flight operation that we could have. They thought, hey, maybe I should go check on him. Maybe I should go check on his work. He told me he was working on this. Let me go have a look at him, right? When you're put on a job, letting others know where you left the job when it's time to go home. What do I mean by that? We've hit on it a couple of times. If you're changing a tire and you didn't get finished torquing the nut, or you didn't get finished, torquing the B nut on the hydraulic lines, right? Or it doesn't matter what you're working on. If you gotta leave and it's incomplete, if you gotta leave and it's complete, if you gotta leave or if you are moving on to another job, look at your closest colleague or go to your inspector, which is what I would suggest. Go to a superior and say, hey, I completed this job. Give a brief description on, what it was like, things that you encountered, didn't encounter, didn't look great, or oh, it was ugly in there. However, everything was in limits, and I tried to clean it up the best I could. Or Tommy put me on another job that brake assembly still needs to be inspected. The one that I installed still needs to be inspected. You need to over communicate when you are stopping a job, when you have completed a job, when you have not completed a job. It does not matter. You always want to let others know where you stand. All right, so that's my little spiel on communication. I'll talk to you soon. Until then, continue to pursue excellence.